Chronometry calibrated. The gateway will open in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Analyzing data. Likelihood of parallel universes now at 16%. Continuing analysis of the many worlds hypothesis.
Behold, the quintessential devil in these matters, Gay T. Fesh, renegade and terrorist. Not only is he responsible for the review of 3 Star Trek films, see now the real plot and intentions. Even as this YouTube landscape was negotiating for a Zack Snyder renaissance, Gay Fesh was secretly developing a podcast, a secret base from which to launch the annihilation of the fandom menace. We demand the extradition of Gay Fesh. We demand justice. Welcome, everyone. I'm Gay Fesh. Joining me, as always, is the lovely Moss.
Hello.
And DemonMama.
Hello. That was incredible.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Great
and
delivery.
Today we are going to be discussing Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, also known as the one with the whales. I think that's how everyone just calls it. Oh, I love the one with the whales.
Yeah.
So I think I've watched this one like 4 times in the last week, so I am ready to go.
Well, we found my partner's favorite Star Trek movie altogether, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my partner was just like, wow, that was awesome. That's easily the best one. And I was like, I'm still partial to motion picture, personally, but this one is definitely my second favorite.
This one is generally considered, like, you'll often see people say Wrath of Khan is the best one, but I think you'll find that this one is most people's favorites. It was, until Star Trek 2009, it was the most financially successful of any Star Trek film.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And its popularity got us TNG, and the rest is history. So,
That's awesome. I mean,
It's wild for a 4th
for that alone
movie.
Yeah.
well, and it's funny too, because I was like looking up some background information on the development of it, and apparently Search for Spock had not been released overseas. It was only a US theatrical release. Like, it got like a straight to VHS release in some markets. So but when this movie came out, because Search for Spock hadn't come out, actually, like, in certain markets, they didn't market it as a Star Trek film. They just called it The Voyage Home, and then they had like Star Trek in like subtitles, and they had like a couple minute intro just recapping the events of Search for Spock because people in those markets hadn't seen it.
Wow.
Demon, what were your first thoughts on this movie?
Oh, this movie, first of all, so the most 80s movie ever. Like a literal Save the Whales plot. Now, I don't know how like ubiquitous this experience was for other people, but I had a family member, an aunt specifically, who was all about Save the Whales in the early 90s. And
It's a big thing.
it was a big thing. And the sort of like environmentalist hippie aunt who's like, we got to save the whales. Like, this was the type where it's like there would be like my cousins had little banks where they would get allowance every week, and a small portion they would put into their Save the Whales fund.
Oh,
Like, just as like to teach them environmental responsibility or whatever. And yeah, so like I was like, oh man, the Save the Whales plot, it's just like, it's so quintessentially like late 80s. And I was like, wow, incredible. Yeah, no, I love this movie. It really seemed like the cast was having the most fun ever. They all just it felt like you could feel like the fun that they were having in these different weird positions just radiating off the whole film. I also really like that, like, everyone got a lot of time to do stuff and have unique little things to do in this movie. It also has more of like a thematic through line than the last 2 films, in my opinion, which I appreciated. And yeah, I really like this movie. I had a great time with it. I thought it was fun. It is really funny how much, like, in this movie they kind of just like are like, it's Star Trek, just go with it. Like, oh, we're gonna try a time warp. Like, that's just like a thing that people are like, oh yeah, you can do that. You probably shouldn't, but like, let's just try it. I was like, wow. I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures, I guess, but still, just to be like out of the pocket, let's try a time warp. I'm like, whoa, hold on.
All right, Moss.
yeah, no, I definitely had some of the same feelings about like, oh, it's a statement movie. Like, they're pulling in this environmental message. I concur with your partner. I think this is my favorite of the Star Trek movies. Like the performances stand really well. There's like a particular kind of feeling that you have about it as someone who's like knowledgeable about history, where you're like, oh my God, I'm so worried about Chekhov. Like, stop saying that you want the nuclear vessels. I'm gonna fucking lose my mind. Yeah, like I'm so anxious for you right now. But yeah, it was cool. It was like, I mean, it was a little bit like a video game in some ways, if it makes sense, where you're like, you've got a team that's on a bunch of fetch quests, but because we are following each team, it's more like we are doing each of the fetch quests in that way. And yeah, I mean, I really liked it. I thought the pacing was great. I liked the idea of the whole plot. I was worried at the beginning of the movie, it's like something's heading for Earth. And I was like, okay, we're going to be redundant a little bit with this because we did that already in the previous movie. But they took it like a completely different direction. And I imagine how much fun it was to film, getting to actually film a Star Trek movie, or even like anything in Star Trek, the original series, like I don't know if they were filming in San Fran, but like
they were
contextually like in an American city in San Francisco. Yeah, just a fun romp all around. Great movie.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's not my favorite. I will tell you when we get to my favorite, but it is definitely up there. It's definitely a good movie, and I would say it is definitely the most fun of the I would say, like, in terms of funness, I'm trying to see whether I would rate this one or Star Trek Beyond higher, because those are both very fun movies. You know, not talking quality, just in terms of how much fun it is. But yeah, no, I really enjoy this one. I think this is my parents' favorite. General audiences, yeah, it's most people's favorite, and
I feel like there's more comedy in this one than usual.
Oh yeah.
It's the fish out of water scenario. It's, you know, the social commentary on, you know, present day stuff. And, you know, Star Trek has done time travel stuff where they always go to present day. And actually they did the season 2 of Picard. There was a time travel plot where they went to present day. And there's a scene where 7 of 9 is on a bus, and that bus punk from Star Trek 4 is in there. And he's got his ghetto blaster still, and he's rocking out to that song, and she asks him to turn it off, and he immediately turns it off. He's like, sorry, I just really like that song.
That's very funny. I like that. That was good.
Yeah, no, I enjoy this one a lot. This is also the first time Michael Okuda worked on Star Trek. Michael Okuda is the one who designed LCARS, the Star Trek touchscreen interface, which if you're watching on YouTube is what this is all based on. But he was hired to do the controls for the HMS Bounty, the bird of prey, and so like he kind of introduced the whole touchscreen aesthetic to Star Trek. So that's nice.
I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Leonard Nimoy's directorial debut?
No, he directed Search for Spock as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. I like that.
A marked improvement, I'll say, in this movie, in my opinion.
I agree.
Not that Search for Spock was bad. I actually liked Search for Spock more than I remember liking it before.
It was definitely weird.
It was weird, but yeah, it was a weird movie. But I mean, still, like, I thought it was an enjoyable enough watch. We were laughing about the Klingon ship, the fog machines. We were talking about how, like, the whole time we were watching this, we kept making jokes about how, like, no, the fog machines are, like, functional if you think about Klingon ideology. It's like, no, you have to have the fog machines on, because if you're not stressed out with fog shooting out of stuff, then you're not going to be at your best. You need to be at your best in battle. So those
Klingons
are like
always have fog machines. Like anytime you go to Kronos, there's fog machines, right? Yeah. It's everything's dingy and darkly lit and slightly grimy.
That's high humidity for their gills. Okay.
I assume it's probably just their atmosphere is more opaque than ours. I assume there's just some quality of Kronos's atmosphere that it's not toxic, but it is more visible.
There's there's so much that I liked in this movie. The one thing that I really appreciated about this movie, and that I think was like a good touch, especially coming from two movies that I feel like did not have particularly strong, like a central thing that they were talking about, was like this movie was very, very interested. And I love this because this is very Star Trek in my mind, is like it was very interested in a compassionate look at the other, where you have Spock, who is like the ultimate other in this case. He is someone familiar, but also who he is struggling to connect with his own memories, and other people are struggling to connect with him because of that. He ends up being the bridge that is able to connect with this long gone the whales. Like he's like, oh well, like what if this is like this communication, it's like it's a signal that's not meant for us. Like, why are you being so like human centric? Like, what if it's about for somebody else? And then we have like that connection leads on to him like, you know, mind melding with the whale and being able to communicate with the whale and like literally ask like, hey, are you cool if we, you know, take you to the future? Which is like great. And
I
then
love that he got the consent of the whales.
Yeah, exactly.
If we were to assume that these whales are ours to do with as we please, then we would be no better than those who caused their extinction.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so good. And like, and then there's also like, I like that there's this element of, you mentioned at the beginning being worried that there was going to be kind of like a rehash of like the probe coming to Earth. In this one, I love that there is
some of the same beats.
It does, but it goes in a different direction in that it's like, no, they don't actually end up talking to the probe. The whales just do all the talking, and then the probe's like, okie dokie, I'm out.
And we don't find out what they say to each other.
I was going to ask, is there like a secret script somewhere where like the writers knew what the back and forth was? Because it's just like, it's completely out of human understanding.
Nope.
It's like, hey, bro. It's like, yo, space cylinder.
The legacy of this film, though, is that it has been long poured over in fan circles. But when the Enterprise D blueprints were released, there was large whale tanks included. They're called Cetacean Ops. And then so a long time people were like, oh, we got to go to Cetacean Ops. And finally in Lower Decks, we do get to see Cetacean Ops. The Cerritos has a couple of Beluga crew members. And like whales are in Starfleet now.
That's so awesome.
Cool.
I love that. That's so good. Yeah, no, it's so cool that like, I don't know. I love the way that it works out. It's just like the probe shows by. It's like, whale bros, how you doing? We were worried you wouldn't respond for a second. It's like, nah, space cylinder, we're good. We're good. Head on out,
I just imagine like this whole thing is just like they bring them in and the whales are like, oh, new phone, who this?
Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. It's so cool. I love that. I love that aspect of it. I find it to be a nice. You know, it doesn't go quite as heady as like the stuff that was going on in the motion picture, which the motion picture is just like death and the ship of Theseus and all these like kind of like big philosophy 101 questions that are like blown up onto a big screen. This movie's like, stop being an asshole to whales and anybody who's different than you, because not every conversation is meant for you. These guys just wanted to talk to their whale bros.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like everyone's eardrums would have been shattered. Because sound passes really well through water, but it does not. So you got to like, you have this thing that's in space projecting sound into the atmosphere, and then it has to go through all of the air in the atmosphere and then reach the ocean and be loud enough at that point to then be heard in the ocean. I just feel like medically everyone would be dead.
Well, I also got to wonder about, because like the film goes to lengths to say that the builders of the whale probe, like Spock, is like there's no malicious intent in this. They don't know what they're doing, but it feels like that's kind of a big oversight, that if you're sending a probe to talk to whales, that your probe vaporizes oceans. That seems like maybe a bad call.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little. But there was another thing I was going to say about, it's kind of funny too, and I don't know if this was intentional on their part, but there's a really similar thing that happens in the real world. I don't know if anyone here knows about this, but like the sonar on large ships, specifically like aircraft carriers and stuff like that, is so loud that it kills nearby creatures, and it does hurt. It can even hurt whales at long distance. It is so loud that like if there are people in the water, it will kill them.
Mm-hmm.
If they're nearby, it will kill fish. Like when they activate the sonar, it will like fish will just float up because it's that, strong. So there is kind of a parallel there between like an unintended consequence that's fairly careless. In this case, a little more excusable on the aliens because they're, presumably not sending something that's a weapon of war also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, but yeah, we have these weapons of war that literally do that to marine life all the time, which I didn't even know about.
I think I read something that like it used to be before the 20th century, whale song could carry from one end of the Pacific to the other. That whales could literally just communicate to each other across the entire planet until we started having these heavily mechanized ships going through and disrupting things, not just with sonar, but just with, just the intrusive nature of all of these mechanized vessels and sound
like
carrying
the engine
very well
and everything. Yeah.
all of that. And so now whale song might only travel like 100 miles.
Damn.
I definitely consider whales to be sentient creatures.
For sure.
I actually prefer the term sapient, but Star Trek tends to use sentient when they're talking about, people who are on our level. But like orcas especially, I just basically, if they had hands, they could build society. I think of them as like wet cavemen. And so when you think of what destruction of culture that we have wrought on sea life, that we can't even know what was lost. And that's kind of implied here. I mean, obviously, like the humpback whales, like they don't have any technology that we know of, but their whale song is able to, I mean, not even just with the whale probe, the bird of prey itself, when they go travel into the past, before they've even entered the atmosphere, Uhura was like, Admiral, I'm picking up whale songs. So like the humpback whale's sound is broadcast in a way that a starship outside the atmosphere can pick up.
I was wondering about that. Yeah, I was like, where's the microphone that you're receiving this from? So that's an interesting kind of like open-ended question there of like, how is that being picked up by a starship?
I do think it's a genuinely as sort of sloganified as like Save the Whales as I do think it's like a genuinely good message. The treatment of marine life, again, it is that whole like way that humanity, especially in the current moment, like has towards anything that's different than us, anything that's an other, is like either exploitable or expendable. And I don't know, I think about like cephalopods all the time because they're incredibly, incredibly smart. And I'm just like, the moment's going to happen. We're going to stumble upon the octopus city. I mean, there are literally octopus metropolises. That's like a real thing. They make giant collectives where they gather stuff and all live together, and nobody fully understands it yet. But I'm like, we're going to find the real one that's got their own equivalent of planes. And they're going to be like, sorry, it's time. We've had the vibranium the whole time. You guys just needed to mind your own business, but now that you're here, you're cooked.
I mean, like that's literally just Namor's plot.
It is.
Like,
yeah.
That is literally Namor.
There's a lot that I liked in this movie. I really like the like Bones. Bones is so much fun in this movie. Like,
he's so weird all the time.
Yeah, he's so weird, but it's like the dude is like he's gone through so much, and he's like still a grouch in certain ways. He's managed to keep like a part of himself, but he's also like it's like he's been like refreshed in his own way from having like, oh yeah, I was kind of Spock for a while, it was interesting. And like he keeps trying to talk to Spock about it, and Spock's just like, yeah, I don't know if I want to talk about that yet. Like, you guys need to sit down and like have a conversation about the fact that you were like,
yeah, not in the middle of a crisis.
It's been 3 months since Search for Spock, so like they've been on Vulcan this whole time. I'm assuming this is not the first conversation Bones has had with Spock since getting Spock out of his head. But it's very clear that Bones is trying to start up the old bickering that they used to have on the original series, and Spock is he's not quite there yet. He's not able to engage in that repartee quite as well as he used to. He's still finding himself, and that's like he's talked about. That was kind of his arc, and it opens in the beginning with him. His mom was like, "Well, your mind is being retrained in the Vulcan way, but you are human too, and you have emotions, and they will surface, and you should learn how to deal with that."
Hey, you gotta go take a break from the space trivia and go do some like emotional experiences. Maybe go to like a pottery therapy class or something. I don't know, you know?
I did. I felt like the "I feel fine" at the end, like that genuinely made me tear up. I was like, oh,
Aw.
that's nice. Like, I mean, it's pretty easy to make me tear up right now. The BPD is beep it deep, and let me tell you. But yeah, it was like that was an emotional through line through the movie, and sometimes I get a little bit tired of the like Spock's journey. Always, it feels like it's like, how can we come up with another way to reset him back to logic only? Must learn how to emotion correctly again. So it's like, okay, well, it's a little bit of a rehash on that point, but it still finds a way, I guess, through the performance and through the direction, finds a way to be emotionally resonant. And I just really like Sarek too. Like,
Yeah.
so scenes with him and his struggle with his emotionality and getting to see Spock's mom, whose name I'm blanking on. Amanda. Okay. I'm like Winona Ryder. And then I'm like, no, that's not correct. Yeah. So I found it emotionally evocative, if nothing else.
Winona Ryder's the other one. That's the other mom.
I know. Well, she's in the new one.
Yeah, in the new ones, in the new movies. Yeah. I know. Hang on. I'm trying to remember this actress's name. She played Spock's mom in the original series. Like,
I remember,
she was in Journey to Babel. And then imagine doing like one episode of a TV show in the 60s and getting called 2 decades later going, hey, you want to reprise your role as character's mom from 2 decades ago?
For a huge wad of cash?
Yeah, it's a paycheck. Yeah,
totally. No, but there is a problem with Spock having a bit of a short character loop that loops a little frequently. Like, I think I brought that up a little in like the Wrath of Khan, where it's like, oh, it feels like they just kind of forgot the whole conclusion of the first movie, which was like pretty major. And for this, I want to draw a comparison to TNG, which I think like Data's arcs and storyline throughout TNG, they managed to like have it be so gradual and like him have these little awakenings and little realizations that it doesn't feel so much like he's just getting reset over and over again. I think that they genuinely like learned from the experience with Spock, because obviously there's a direct comparison between Data and Spock.
Also easier to do that over a TV show than over a film franchise.
For sure.
There's orders of magnitude, difference in runtime.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just give him a different thing. Is what is kind of the complaint that I'm making, is like, give him a different arc of things that he needs to deal with. That is not just a
different struggle, a new emotion, or an emotion that is particularly difficult.
Yeah, totally.
Like, I mean, honestly, looking back at the other two movies, I feel like having Spock be the one who has to confront his own death and like the reality that his I can't remember what the soul brain is called. Katra, that his Katra might not be like recovered, like that would have made a more holistic and complete movie out of Khan, because again, like I've said this a couple times, but like Kirk just does not, he just sidesteps it again, but they treat it like he didn't. It's like, it's explicit. The movie is like, you have to be able to deal with your own death. And like, he's like, no, I'm not. I'm dealing with the death of a friend, but I'm still here. Like, and I feel young. And it's like, that's a weird decision. So
just falls a little flat thematically.
Yeah, have it be Spock's struggle for that movie. I don't know. That's just me shooting ideas around.
Or, give another character like a big struggle that's like the main focus of the movie.
Yeah.
Spock doesn't have to have like the major arc in everything. I know Spock is the most popular character, so I understand why they keep doing it. But like,
yeah, there's a reason.
You could give Bones more stuff to do other than snidely snark at everyone. Like that's kind of what he does in all these movies, is just snidely snark at people. Like Search for Spock is kind of like the most story that he actually gets that's about him, and it's still not kind of really about him. It's still about Spock.
Yeah.
It is great in this movie that we see him like give out the kidney growth pill. Like I love that scene, and then him like just being like, you I can't believe the procedures you're talking about. That's disgusting. That's horrifying. How can you even consider that?
It's like the Dark Ages in here.
Yeah, he genuinely seems to view what are our like best medical practices as like functionally the equivalent of like leeching or bloodletting.
He's 300 years in the future. They have non-invasive surgical methods now. Like he was able to repair an artery in Chekhov's brain by just attaching a thing to the outside of his head.
Totally.
But also just in general, like the cavalier attitude that everyone has toward maintaining the timeline is so funny when you like compare it to other Star Treks where they're like, remember, the temporal prime directive, you must not interfere with events. And here is like, Scotty's just like, well, I don't know that I am interfering with events by giving out the technology for transparent aluminum. Who knows? This guy might have invented it. We'll just take that gamble. Sure, we'll just have a Russian walk around the streets of New York during the waning days of the Cold War and ask about nuclear vessels. And you know what? The world's leading humpback whale expert vanishes the same day that 2 of the whales are released from her institute. Sure, why not? Let's just go ahead and do that. I'm sure that's not more than a historical footnote.
Yeah, it doesn't really deal with that question that is often. And like, to be fair, this movie possesses time travel. It is not a time travel movie, because it doesn't deal with any of those questions of like, did we just create a multiverse? Did we rewrite our own history? Is there going to be a butterfly effect? They basically are just like, for the purposes of the plot, who fucking cares?
Yes, thank God. Thank God.
Yeah.
It is so rare that anyone can do a time travel movie that's even like remotely interesting or doesn't just start getting stupid. I mean, I'm now having flashbacks to End War, Infinity Game, Infinity War. Like, just the stuff that I'm just like, I don't know. There's so much there that I'm just like, you open the door and then you step into it so many times, but then you don't step into it whenever it's convenient. And it's like, I would much prefer a movie that's just like, that who cares? Like, yes, they're giving this out, have a little throwaway line and let's move on. Like, it doesn't, like, their planet's going to get blown up. They got no choice. They weren't prepared for this. They went back in time. It is a Hail Mary. Yeah, it's a Hail Mary. And so they're like, yeah, we might mess up the timeline a little bit, but hey, every life on Earth is screwed if we don't. So let's mess with the timeline a little bit.
I will say that like there's multiple Hail Marys in this movie and some of them seem more of a jump than others. I'm shocked how quickly Jillian goes from, oh, they shipped the whales out early. My first instinct is to go to the kook who claims he's from space in the future and be like, hey, save me.
I mean,
that's
I think
a Hail Mary.
She feels like there's no option. Yeah,
and she does see the bit of the teleportation, right?
Yeah.
She like got a hint of that at the end. Yeah, but like it's still like she doesn't know. And like, would you really believe that story if some guy just was like, oh, I swam with your whales because I need to rescue them to take to the future? And like yeah, okay, all right. Let's get you a nice padded room. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know what would have happened because it's like, I don't even know how much she really believed or if she was just like, this is a last ditch effort to save these whales because they're pretty much capital G gonna die. And then I was waiting the whole movie. For someone to walk face first into that ship.
Yes.
It was her. It was a little bit like she just was like, and I kind of wanted it to be a full like thunk, but it was what it was.
I don't know how much experience with miming she has. Her hand placement on there, like,
Totally.
She did her best.
Yeah.
There are like nowadays you could definitely have it more believable. You could do a CGI smush on somebody's face as they face plant into it, or you could just like film it in front of like
glass.
A glass. Yeah, there's ways to do it, but apparently in early drafts of the script, Dr. Taylor was supposed to be a man, and they had Eddie Murphy in mind to play him.
Oh my.
Which I think would have been interesting. He's, like this was the 80s, so that was kind of like the height of his career, and it's a comedy, so I think there's a version of this movie that with Eddie Murphy that would have worked pretty well. But it would have been
a very different vibe.
It would have been a very different vibe because I don't think he would have had the same flirtationship with Kirk as Jillian did.
And Kirk is kind of like, he's kind of good at that. Like, Shatner is good at that, like in a role generally, but the Kirk character specifically, it's like
he's pretty charming.
Yeah, he's not like, this movie was it didn't have too much of the like sexism. Like it was not as
Kind of just ignored that completely.
I mean, it just wasn't really there. And so it's like, yeah, oh, cool. Okay, all right, this is charming now. It's not really creepy.
Also, this movie gave us the first female captain in Star Trek.
It was a black female.
True.
And it was Madge Sinclair.
Ooh.
She was captain of the Saratoga, yeah.
Also,
Nice.
I noticed we got Luoxana Troy's actress again.
Yeah, she is playing Christine Chapel. She's playing her
she's the same
from the original.
character.
She's playing her character from the original series.
Yeah, she was just in like a side. I'm like Luoxana Troy identified. I have like her face is just like so locked in my mind that like I feel like I could spot her anywhere. But I also just really love every Luoxana Troy episode that's ever been done. So they're all ridiculous and I love them. But yeah, no, so it was great to see her. I was just like, oh my God, there she is. Also, can I just do a shout out for the Scotty in the aluminum plant?
He is hamming it up so much.
The extreme ham, and also followed up by the like perfect playing off of the like computer, and then it's like
computer,
and then he like
quaint.
picks up the mouse. Try the mouse, and he's like. The guy's like, just use the mouse. He's like, primitive. It's like so unbelievably hammed up. And then
there's even moments his accent kind of slips from Scottish to Irish in certain parts when he was like doing the big rant. It's like, oh, I've come here from millions of miles away. And like, I was hearing him like, there's a little bit of Irish in there.
It's so good. And then it's just like, and then also like the fact that he's just like, okay, now I have the keyboard and I'm just going to type and a bunch of windows are going to pop open with like the secret to
so
aluminum.
Realistic.
Incredible. Just a silly flaunting of like technological problems that I thought was great. It is like a tongue-in-cheek poke at the like techno babble. Like it's like, nah, just and then it's just like and the guy in the background sitting there going, oh, he's doing the like WWE McMahon like coming.
Yeah.
It's just like, I would, another thing that would have been funny too, that could have worked there would be just like, if Scotty was just like, no, he invented it. Like, I didn't break the timeline. He invented it. It like actually changes the timeline. And then he just remembers, oh yeah, this is the guy who invented it.
I mean, like the whole reason they were able to figure out what's going on, there was a line early where they said they had the Federation database integrated into the ship's computer because it's a Klingon ship, so you wouldn't expect it to be there. But they had that line in there to just issue it. Okay, well, they should have historical records of the time and be able to find out who invented transparent aluminum. Like, oh my God, he's in San Francisco at this era? Okay, I'm just going to give it to him.
Yeah, we'll give it to him.
Like they could have had that knowledge. Yeah.
It's fine. It's good. It's all clear.
Also, we have transparent aluminum now, so there you go.
There you go. It works
Didn't mess
out.
up the time stream too bad then.
Well, and it makes sense that they would even assume that because like sapphire is an alumina oxide. We already knew that there was
that's a thin layer of sapphire on every airplane.
Yeah, the ISS windows are, I think, sapphire, or there's some kind of transparent aluminum. I know that much. So
that's cool.
That's awesome. There was like a small scene that I thought was just absolutely great, which was the garbage collectors in the park. Yeah, and all their stuff.
Like the way she fights.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's like I didn't see nothing as we're driving away. It's like you like UFO paranoia or like, oh no, the government's doing some stuff. The like perhaps the silliest moment in the entire movie is the entire section on the nuclear vessel.
Yes, Enterprise.
So something my partner mentioned was like, wow, this movie is so pre 9/11 that it like obviously it is, but it's like it shows in the culture so much, like so many people just walking places and no one giving a shit. Like just being like, yeah, whatever. Like,
well, they did beam into the Enterprise. Like, they
beam into the Enterprise. But no, I just mean other parts in the movie of just like people walking into places and being like, yeah, really thin or flimsy cover for like doing that thing. And then like the reaction being like, hey, you jumped in the whale pool. If you don't stop jumping in the whale pool, I'm going to call the cops. Not like 16 security groups get over here, shoot this man immediately. Like, and it's just, and then, yeah, of course, like the response of like, there's a suspected Russian spy on your nuclear vessel. Don't like shoot him instantly.
don't send him to a civilian hospital.
Yeah.
Like there are so many weird things about that.
There are.
He
There's
has
so many.
like he has these devices that they don't know what they are, and they just leave them in his grasp in front of him on the table, like
With the door open.
That bit stretched credulity a little bit because it is a military vessel. Like there should be a little bit more of like security concern. I mean, the fact of the matter is they couldn't film on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Not just for security concerns, although security concerns they did not want, like
Military secrets, etc.
Yeah, military secrets, the operation of the nuclear power, that is a military secret, so they didn't want cameras in there. So they filmed on the USS Ranger, which was in port at the time. Actually, I think the Enterprise was out on patrols. So the Ranger is another carrier, but it's more traditionally powered. It's not a nuclear sub or a nuclear thing. So, speaking of nuclear vessels, apparently there was the sequence at the end when they're releasing the whales into by the Golden Gate Bridge. The whale animatronics, a cable attached to them, actually snagged a passing nuclear submarine, and like they almost lost the whales out into the ocean because of it.
Oh dear, God. Yeah, that big mechanical tail that they used twice in the movie.
Yeah, there was the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Department actually condemned the movie at first because like, you got too close to whales. You shouldn't have done that. They're like, oh no, we didn't. Those were fake. But thank you for the compliment.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I guess they assumed that they filmed actual whales for that.
They did have obviously the documentary footage of the whaling stuff. That's real footage, and then like at the very end when you see the whales swimming out in the open ocean, that was actual footage of whales. But yeah, no, for the most part, any close-up shots of the whales are all fake.
Yeah,
they filmed it in like a high school pool or something like that.
Yeah, my assumption was like the underwater stuff was probably CGI. I mean, there was the very clear green screen
animatronics.
I keep forgetting that like CGI wasn't as good back then. It's like they comped in stuff and I could see like, okay, there's green screen there, blah, blah. But yeah. And then like, I figured, the stuff of them breaching looked like just documentary footage, basically.
I will say that on all of this, like a marked increase in set design quality for this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was awesome.
I think part of it is that so much of it happens in modern day United States where they can film on location and don't really have to like build a set that's like too otherworldly, which they could just focus on the few that were. But like the Klingon ship is just like awesome, and it looks way better. You don't get any of the like in Search for Spock, the first shots of the Enterprise, it doesn't look like a destroyed ship. It looks like a destroyed set. And I was just like, oh man, it's so rough. And there were some really good stuff in Search for Spock that I really liked. Like there were some great costumes. Like the costumes were really impressive in Search for Spock, but some of the sets were just like, woof. Like this is taking a toll, and it was nice to see like fully fleshed out, really nice looking sets in this movie, which I appreciated a lot. It's a very different soundtrack in this movie.
Yeah, who was the composer on this one? It was James Horner had done 2 and 3. Leonard Rosenman did this one.
Leonard Rosenman. Wow, James Horner did Land Before Time.
Yeah.
Ooh, and Avatar. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, James Horner's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I knew he'd done a lot. There was one, for some reason, who was it who did The Village? That was James Newton Howard. Okay, yeah, sorry. I was getting them mixed up. But
yeah, I can understand mixing those up.
That. Yeah. So kind of some similar, a little more like sad and melancholy with the James Newton Howard soundtrack. But yeah, oh my God.
Well, and this movie, like the soundtrack for this movie is far more like contemporary, obviously, because they were doing time travel. Like, the intro scene when they're walking through the streets of San Francisco was like aggressively 80s.
It was nice.
It was just like they're like, we're going to punch you in the face with how 80s this music is.
Yeah, we really want you to feel it. It reminds me a little bit of Captain Marvel, where they were like, let's throw some 90s music in this soundtrack. And I was like, okay, this really feels like the 90s. Like they did a good job of making that feel like the 80s in this movie.
difference, though, in that the Captain Marvel was a period piece, whereas this isn't a period piece. This was a contemporary film. They were going to present day. It was just, here's the contemporary music of the time. I'm going to punch you with it.
Yeah. That is the perspective of like, it's a couple decades later, so it feels like a period piece to me. I was just going to say that like we're watching technological advancement happen. Like we are watching movies from the 70s and 80s. And so we get to see as like CGI starts to get implemented in different ways. Even the technology of like, how do we build sets and how do we do costume design? Like all of those things are forms of technology for telling the story. And the thing that has stuck out to me is the changes in cinematography. Like it feels like there was a new kind of camera that came out somewhere in the mix here, where it's like the way that everything is shot and like the quality of what you can actually capture in camera is increasing. So that kind of helps tell the stories in a different way. It's like, and it is partially because they were shooting outside, I think, as well. Like the lighting conditions are totally different for a lot of these scenes. So yeah, it's just really interesting.
I think it's probably more of the technology change on that front is most likely. Obviously, there's going to be changes in cinematographic style, but there is more likely to be like how the film is presented. Because the cool thing about film is that it has functionally infinite digital resolution. Mm-hmm. Because of the like film is shot and it's like it's burned onto a physical medium, and as a result you can basically blow it up. That's why you can get like 4K versions of film movies that look fantastic, because you can just blow that up and
you're really limited just by the grain. Yeah,
you're limited by the grain, and the grain doesn't, I mean, obviously has a particular look that is often desirable. I mean, digital filmmakers now sometimes add fake digital grain to replicate the particular appearance of like film grain. And obviously there's like variations in film grain, but it's kind of weird because I think one of the biggest movies that was like done all digital was Phantom Menace, right? If I remember correctly, that was like a huge step.
I think actually Attack of the Clones was the first all digital one. I think that one was one that used digital.
Was it all digital?
I think Phantom Menace still used film cameras, but yeah, no, Attack of the Clones was all digital.
I remember one of Lucas's films being talked about for that reason, because it was a pretty controversial decision to make the flip over to all digital. Now, obviously, digital camera technology has come a very long way, but we still can't capture images digitally that are reliably as good as, as flexible, I should say, as on film. It's just at this point the quality difference is so small that the cost is like, you go straight to the digital. But obviously some filmmakers still shoot on film, and those movies tend to have like a certain buzz around them. The Hateful Eight, was one that was shot on film. The whole technology of digital cameras is really interesting. One of the big limiters to digital camera usage, even up until fairly recently, was the fact that there was a sort of legacy adoption problem in the fact that lenses for just a quick background here from some film nerd shit. Lenses are insanely expensive. Mm-hmm. And they're really expensive to manufacture. They're really expensive to use and to possess. Like high-end cinematographers, directors of photography, they will often have their own personal collection of lenses that the film will license from them, basically. So they'll not only be paid, they'll also be paid basically a rental fee for them bringing their own lenses. And that's just because the acquisition and building an array of lenses that you want is very, very particular and very expensive and very specialized. For a long time, it was very difficult to find a digital camera that had the same flexibility in lenses as traditional film cameras. There were some pretty major developments in the aughts that were like, or in the tens rather, that were like, for example, ARRI, one of the biggest film camera companies, made a digital camera that had a mount that could just take ARRI master lenses. You could just pop them right on. And that was considered a major change in the digital video field and also for the visuals. So all of this is a gigantic ramble about silly camera tech, but it is probably most likely what we're seeing in this movie is a change in like style of cinematography, which definitely happens. Every filmmaker has their own style, but there are trends that you see a lot in like what is the approach. A really egregious example of this is like Zack Snyder's new thing of like the hyper shallow focus. This was really present in Rebel Moon 2, where it's like every shot of a character, their face is like super in focus and the background is like super blurry, and it creates this weird like bubble effect, and it was very dramatic, this hyper short focus. But you see that kind of change through decades and eras of filmmaking, and then also the ability to just like how this movie is going to be delivered and played, whether it's being converted to a digital format or not, is a pretty big deal. That was a long ramble, but I hope it was some interesting stuff for people who are into film out there.
I appreciated it.
So there was a deleted subplot that was deleted for performance reasons, actually. But at the beginning of the movie, when they first time travel, Sulu goes, San Francisco, I was born there. There was intended to be a plot where he meets his like great grandfather, who's a little kid at the time, and they had the day scheduled and they were filming, but the child that they cast was not a professional actor and was too nervous, and so they really couldn't get anything out of it. So Sulu had more to do in this movie, but due to circumstances outside his control was not able to. But that's okay. He still got to flirt with that Huey pilot.
Oh my God. And then also the whole like him being like, oh, have you gotten used to the Huey?
I love how they just kind of yada like how he gets the helicopter. He's just like he's just there flirting with the pilot, and then like later we just see he just has the helicopter. Yeah.
Like,
we can imagine.
Listen, it was the 80s, so they couldn't just be open about the gay subtext, but like it was there. Like I like to imagine he didn't steal it. He traded favors for it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just gonna borrow it.
They flirt for like hours, and then he's like, come on, let me take it out for a spin. Oh, I can't
let you.
I'd love you so much for it.
I'll do that thing again.
I'll do that thing you like. Yeah. Speaking of gay shit, I have to bring it up every time. Yes. I'm gonna do it again. So first of all, I have in my notes in all caps, Spock cheeks. and then at the end, after the court-martial like proceedings come to an end, they both look at each other, and I just watched this movie before we started the podcast. I was like, kiss.
Just do it.
Just do it. Finally. Yeah, that was it. I just had to bring the spurk up at least once.
I'm amazed that we ended on spurk and not cock.
I know.
When I was growing up, it wasn't even called Spurk. Like that's a more like recent thing. It was always a Kirk / Spock, which is where we got the term /fiction from.
Or was just the premise.
It was
for such a long time. It was spoken of in euphemism.
Well, and I guess like the whole like combining names. That's
kind of a recent fan fiction.
That is a more recent thing.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that got its start with like Bennifer and stuff like that. Like celebrity mashups. I feel like that's where the combined name really started as a shipping thing. But yeah, so whenever I hear Spurk, I'm just like, I'm kind of too old school to like immediately go to that. I always think Kirk / Spock.
For me, it'll always be cock. That's just how it's gonna be.
You know what? I won't argue with you. There's this moment at the beginning of the film when the Klingon ambassador is, levying his charges, where as the meeting is adjourned and he's walking out, there's just this random noise of like some extra shouting out, "You pompous ass!" And like I just noticed it. Like I never noticed it before until like this last week when I started watching it for the podcast. And I'm just like, it took me a second to realize that they were even yelling it at the Klingon ambassador. I was just like, wait, who are they calling pompous? Because like it could be Sarek, but and then I was like, no, rewatching with John Shuck's performance as the Klingon ambassador. He comes back in a later movie too. He's great. I love him.
I was wondering,
awesome.
if we're gonna see more of him.
Yeah, he's fun. But yeah, no, like, yeah, no, he is a pompous ass. But it's just like the line delivery, the shouting, it's not the best. But it's so I think that maybe that's why it stuck out. It is a silly moment that I had to write down.
I enjoyed the extras in this, like in the hospital surgery, the surgery room. They're like ushering them out of the room, and like some of the chatter of the extras. I was like, oh, that's really good. And that reminds me of the like language in this movie. There's way more cussing in this movie than there ever has been in anything Star Trek, as far as I know.
Colorful metaphors.
Yeah. And I think that this movie obviates how much of a nerd Kirk is. Because like he's sitting here like, oh yeah, you Berkeley, whatever. Da, da, da. Like he's so knowledgeable, and it's 300 years ago. And it's just funny because it rings back to that like meme of how Kirk's like this, ladies' man, and Picard is this like, intellectual, but in reality, it's like kind of the opposite. Yeah, Kirk is the nerd. He's such a huge dork.
I love when he's like, he did a little too much LDS.
Yeah, in college. Too much Latter-day Saints.
An early version of that scene in the script, I think, had Jillian respond, "Oh, is he dyslexic too?"
That's okay.
Yeah, no, I actually love all just the little there's not a lot obviously of future scenes, it's mostly set in present day. But like all the little like alien creatures that they've got in like the big, courtroom area.
That face guy.
Yeah, well, yeah, you got and you get lady. You get to see an Andorian. Again, they're the blue guys with the antenna, and they had a Cadian. Cadians are the cat people. They had a Cadian admiral, I think, talking to the Andorian. I was like, yay! Cadians are like, I think we finally in Lower Decks we finally get a Cadian main character. The Doctor she's a Cadian and she's very ornery. I like them. They're very inconsistent how they're portrayed. Like so the makeup for them between appearances varies wildly. But I don't know. I just like the fact that Star Trek has like just cat people. Yeah. It's just like you go to another planet, it's like, oh yeah, they're just cat people and they behave like cats. Like especially on Lower Decks, Dr. Tiana just like there's an episode where she's in heat and she needs like this ceremonial totem shipped from her homeworld that she needs, and like they go and get it, but like they have problems getting it back and like they end up breaking it. And they have to like quickly hobble it back together. And when they finally get to her, they apologize for the state it's in. She's like, I don't care about that. And she just like jumps in the box that the pole was in. Anyway, that was an aside about Cadians in a movie that's not really about them. But I just like, great. There was a cat there. Kitty.
Yeah.
That's so good. There's one thing, I guess one last thing I have to say loosely about this movie, but also about Star Trek generally, which is I am excited for us to go into the era where Klingons are like more than just like space orcs. And we get some like actual Klingon stuff. Because like in TNG, I love all of the Klingon storylines. Oh, yeah. They're all so good. All of Worf's stuff is like some of the best. It's so good. And in TOS, the movies, they're just like, we need a villain that like you can like safely dislike. And I kind of hate that trope in like a lot of things, but I understand where it comes from, obviously, because you got to have it's a traditional writing thing. But I'm just like, oh man, it's such a bummer. And like it does kind of like being like a TNG person mostly, it makes the original series, it makes it just a little more regrettable, because you're like, oh, the Klingons have so much interesting stuff going on, and like you just don't really get to see any of that because they're just kind of like, these are the bad guys,
Yeah, they're just an oppositional force.
There, a big criticism levied at Star Trek Voyager was how a lot of fans felt like Voyager kind of neutered the Borg. Like, I'm just thinking in terms of, the development of the Klingons. We the first time we see Klingons, like, okay, we need a bad guy, so here's the bad guy. But, they get popular enough, they start making more stories with them. And instead of making those stories all one note of, these are the bad guys again, like, why don't we actually develop their culture so that you learn more about them? And as you learn more about them, you understand them more, and you're afraid of them less because you understand them. And I will defend the Borg episodes in Voyager, even if they do make the Borg less of a threat, because that's the whole point.
That's the whole
of
point.
Star Trek.
Yeah,
when you understand something more, it is not a threat to you. It's not about we have to destroy things that are different than us. It's we have to understand things that are different than us and embrace that diversity.
Yeah, like the whole thing is normalizing the other. Like that's if there is any through line, even when that is not central to the plot, it is still part of it, no matter what.
And I hear your lament about the way the Klingons are portrayed in these movies, and just hold your horses.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, because I haven't seen either of the next films at all.
Totally blind.
Like this movie I hadn't seen since I was a kid, but the next ones I've never seen. So total fresh ground for me.
A whole new movies.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm from Iowa. I only work in outer space. That's all I got. Good movie.
It is. It's a good movie. I enjoyed it a lot. A lot of product placement for a
There
Star
was
Trek movie.
Diet Cokes in the fridge. I noticed at one point. Yeah.
Name drop Michelob. They have that gigantic
true.
Pac Bell ad, and the
Yellow
Macintosh
Pages
was definitely a product placement. Yeah.
Oh my God. Remind me after this. After we end recording, I have something to tell you.
Okay. Anyway, let me get to that. So thank you all so much for joining us. Next up, we will be reviewing Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, where Nimoy gets 2 shots at directing a Star Trek movie. Why don't we give Shatner a try?
Okay, all right.
Until then, I've been Gayfesh.
I'm Moss.
I'm DemonMama.
And we'll catch you next time.
Bye.